right. Tonight's show is going to be about whatever we can figure to talk about. Tonight's show is the blueprint. The Carolina Panthers dropped their first episode of their behind the scenes show, which, Hardknocks right now is having trouble finding.
Yeah, no one wants to be on it.
No one wants to do it. They're even thinking about doing Detroit again. And my friend who loves Hardknocks, my friend loves Hardknocks, and he said he's like, I'm even starting to get kind of worn. It's like the same.
It is.
It's like it's kind of lost some of its luster and some different things like this. Teams don't want to do it. But he said that part of the reason I think that he's not so hyped about it anymore is because now teams are doing these types of productions themselves, which brings me back to the Panthers blueprint. I would say this was the most boring one of all the behind the scenes. It was
more of a reel for our coaches than anything else.
Okay.
Like it was kind of like showing you
about Frank Reich and his staff. The first episode is Frank Reich and his staff. None of the draft.
That's going to be in episode 2. I guarantee it.
So I put all the main dudes on the thumbnail tonight. Frank Reich, Josh McCown, Deuce Staley, Dom Capers. They also they talked about Giro Rivero a lot. And really, you're starting to see why this year is going to be so much different from a coaching perspective than what we had. Not only do we have coaches that have been around, they've been on successful football teams before, but they've been players. They know how to relate to these guys as football players first and foremost. And not every coach can say that, They all seem real personable, real down to earth. And there was a cool part in the show where, they're showing the first game that the Panthers ever played. And it was in Atlanta. And this year is going to be us on the road in Atlanta with you will have Frank Reich, who started at quarterback that original game. And we're going to have Don Capers all over, also on the on the staff. So it's it's a full circle type of deal.
Yeah, the best part.
The episode was not overly action packed for sure.
No, but it was very. I would call it vanilla, right? But I mean, but you're right. It was about the hiring the coaches. I thought I wish they would have given us a little bit more about the hiring process, a little, and some different things. Maybe gotten a fitter in there a little bit more, and some things of why they made that. They touched on it. It was it's only like 22 minutes long or something. It's not very long at all. But my two favorite parts of the whole show was, like you said, at the very end where they're talking about that Frank Reich, Dom Capers going back to Atlanta in their first game, just like in 1996 they did, or in the first season. And I thought it was cool how, obviously there's the nostalgia of the past and that, those guys come in full circle. But I thought was also neat is when Frank Reich was talking about how they were going for it. They scored in the last minute or on the last drive to be 1 point down in the game. And they go for 2. And in 1996, they go for 2. And that's very forward thinking. Instead of kicking the extra point and tying it up and taking it overtime, they're trying to get a win in their first game on the road. Yep. And it's really, and he's like, this is before the analytics and people were talking about how you should be doing those things. So he was praising Dom Capers for being forward thinking. The sad part about it is their right tackle jumped. Fault started. So then they had to kick the extra point because of the change in down and distance. So I thought that was a really neat part. And the other neat part that stuck out to me in the show is obviously everybody's going to talk about Deuce Staley, how he's fun. He's the only, he brings life. But I like when Scott Fitterer said this. He said, go ahead and plan on getting a different defensive coordinator next year.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, man.
He straight said, he said this, and you got a Giro Evero for 1 year, homie. He's going to be a coach
head coach next year. Yeah. Hey, I like that.
If anything heartens me about the defense, it's probably that I think he could get a lot out of the guys that we got.
Yeah.
So excited about that.
They seem like motivators. They seem like the type of people that you're gonna want to run through a wall for. Dude, I remember last year watching Matt Rule walk through that tunnel with the Panthers players walking behind him, and no one had any emotion. It was like they were walking to a fucking wake. It was embarrassing. It was pathetic. And to me, I just do not see how that could ever be possible with these coaches, man. They have great personality, great vibes. You saw Deuce Staley joking around about Matt Corral and his size 15 shoe, which is hilarious. Check that out if you haven't. And Tony, go back.
The wild part about that, Cody, is that's not the first time I've heard that joke.
Yeah.
You know,
they did it last year.
Yeah, but Deuce is still like he doesn't know about that joke. He wasn't here when Matt Rule or whoever said where they were talking.
I think it was Baker Mayfield.
Oh, it was, but yeah. So he wasn't here, and then Deuce comes out and goes, "Damn, look at your feet, man." He said, "I ain't never seen a Nike swoosh that big."
He said, "That swoosh got 5 S's in it." But you know, but to go back real quick, Tony, you were talking about people kind of being over Hard Knocks. I think something else that makes it worse is that now you have Netflix. They're jumping into the game, and they have a new show coming out called Quarterback. And they're following Patrick Mahomes all season. They're following Marcus Mariota in Atlanta and Kirk Cousins. So now you're going to get this in-depth inside look at different
is Marcus Mariota
from last year.
Oh, yeah. From this past season, 2022. And now, like, I mean, there's never been a team on Hard Knocks or the Amazon show or the Hard Knocks during the season that has ever followed a Super Bowl team. And now this Netflix show, the first time they're doing it, they're going to have one. And by the way, Netflix has this track record of, you know, they did this Formula One show that I love, and now everyone's more into Formula One. Like, they're doing all these sports shows that are getting all these new audiences involved in the sports, and it's an Omaha Productions. So this is Peyton Manning and his production crew that's behind the whole thing. I'm pumped for it.
I don't like Netflix algorithms.
What? They got the best one.
No, they have a lot of shows that do really well in their algorithms that they cancel. A lot of shows. Well, and it's just irritating.
Let me see. I've been trying to figure. Can someone in the chat find the picture of Matt Rule in the big hat? You guys seen this?
No.
In the what?
Do you remember the hat that one of the Washington Commander players wore in a post game, and his friends owned a hat making company, and it's like a flat bill hat, like the hats I wear, but they make them these big giant like versions of this shit. You don't remember that from last year? It's kind of like, remember when Cam started getting that hat from that one guy. So this guy was trying to pump up his friend's hat company or whatever. And then so some other people got into him around the league. There's a picture of Matt Rule taking a selfie in this mug. If I had this when you said, "Oh, what, you don't want to run through a wall for this guy?" We put that picture up, you would have died, dude. It's fucking amazing. When it comes to these, great question is how much more do we want to see about these teams? And how much more do we want to see about past teams, though? The one thing that is interesting to me about this Pat Mahomes following Mariota, do we care about those stories anymore? You know?
Well, I mean, yeah. So the reason why I like this Netflix show is it's showing you 3 very different quarterbacks. One that had a bad season, one that made it to the playoffs and was on a good team all year, and the other one won the fucking Super Bowl. So again, HBO or Amazon, they have yet to follow a team that has made it all the way. And that's the type of stuff that I like. Like, I mean, again, going back to one of my favorite movies all time, Willie Beeman. But dude, I love that. Any Given Sunday is one of my favorite.
I just feel like, if a team that's on one of these shows, It's too coordinated. It's too Hollywood, man. Like it's a great story, I guess, if it's your team. But
Well, that's
beyond
it.
that, it just feels too Hollywood.
Well,
It's
that's
like I
why I
said,
like HBO doing it instead of the teams doing
Right.
it. You know, the teams are
Yeah.
going to paint their.
but they still make this.
Right.
Their money pays the same. Their checks cash the same. Like I don't think it matters who's
No,
producing it.
HBO benefits from there being a dramatic element to it.
Yeah, and I want to
Right.
see the
So
drama.
as a third party, they do, and like, yes, they don't want to make the NFL look terrible or look bad, but they also aren't incentivized to sugarcoat it too. They want to leave you on a hanger. They want to leave you on somebody that says something a little out of context that makes it flare up discussion. But when a team does it, like when your internal PR department does it, of course they're going to portray every single thing in a great light.
Well, see,
That's why
you're
the
right.
team media is actually, and one of the things that this is a problem is the Panthers own their own media so much too. Like, I think that's why we're kind of important, or why the Observer's important and things like this, is because if you only read your news on on Panthers.com, it's never going to have the adversary type component to it.
Right.
I agree with you on that to a certain extent, but I feel like if you had team funded stuff, if you had teams putting it out, it's not going to be for the betterment of the NFL. It's going to be for the betterment of the team. And when I say that, what I mean is, like, just go back to a couple of years ago, and you can do this every year with the quarterbacks and the players they put in national TV commercials. Just happen to be the teams they're predicting to win the Super Bowl. They're pushing to go to the Super Bowl. Whereas if you have a team putting it out there themselves, the team's always for themselves. I think it's going to be better content, a team putting out there for themselves, rather than having something written and directed for teams to look this way. Look, I'm sorry, y'all. I said it before. The NFL is a TV show, and they do try to make things work out for what they're going to have make the most money for. It's like I said, a couple years ago, they wanted Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. They did everything they could to get Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Look at the calls that year for both teams. Everything they could to get them in there. There is an objective they have when the NFL backs something. They want to promote as much as they can to make money. So personally, I would like teams doing it better than having the NFL contract it out to somebody and say, this is what we want you to do. This is what we're pushing. You know?
Yeah, well, I think that's also another reason why none of these teams want Hard Knocks. Because, you're talking about when the team does it, you're going to get like a sugar-coated version. So, again, the Panthers are going to show us with this Blueprint series what they want us to see, and that's to be expected. Yeah. But
they don't like the attention, Cody, either. That's the other thing, is it seems like they feel like it's a distraction having that there. And I thought in this episode too, actually my other part that I really love is when Deuce Staley had the running back meeting. And he said, come over here. We're having a running back meeting. And you're like, oh, God, what is this meeting going to be about? He said, there's a rule. We got a rule here. And the rule is, if you on the mic, you got to tell everybody you on the mic. So we don't say something stupid or regret saying something we didn't know you were mic'd up.
Yeah.
Look, this is it. But this, I mean, is this really real? Look, you're going to love this. You haven't seen it, Cody?
The hat? Oh my God.
Oh, I love the idea first. First, the hat's meant to be this, whatever this hat style is like Rich Ridiculous. That's called the style. It's Rich Ridiculous, or I just made that up. So it's when you're so rich, you can wear something like that dress made out of old Panther jerseys, and you're like, oh, it's cool. I paid $90,000 for it. What I love is this is Rich Ridiculous by a ridiculous person. And also, I would love to take I love to take pictures of people taking pictures. That's my dumb thing I do sometimes. Imagine watching Matt Rule take this selfie. Well, how ridiculous do you look?
I bet he didn't have pants on.
Duck look, is that his version of duck lips?
He's such a tool, man.
I want to punch him in the face, man. I'm telling you.
He's such a tool. And dude, there's like a photo of him at some wrestling event, and he's just fucking screaming at the camera. He's such a doofus, dude. I hope that Deion Sanders and the Buffalo up at Colorado, they just shit all over Nebraska.
Yeah.
What I like about, or I don't like about it, is with Matt Rule, I've seen people talking on Twitter. I saw a couple of stories out there, and it was like people trying to say, "Oh, don't worry." It's like it's Nebraska people trying to talk themselves into why Matt Rule is going to be good, or
We
could
were
be
them
good.
at one point in time.
Sure. But then they tell us that we're dumb and we don't know what we're talking. It's like, but your organization is all jacked. And they were like tell me all about the Panthers and why the Panthers were the problem. And I was like, don't worry. I know plenty about the fucking Panthers and all of their problems. But listen to me now, believe me later, homie. This dude is a tool. He's a douchebag. I hate this motherfucker. And you know what? That's not Christian. That's not, you know what I'm saying? Like, I shouldn't be that. In fact, I'm embarrassed. He's one of the few people in my life that when I see him, I have it's like cottage cheese. It's just off-putting.
Hey, say 7 Hail Marys for all the 7 years it was supposed to take us to turn it around.